most veteran legislator to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Tom and David and Joel and Steve and MoveOn.com and Progressive States Network and SCIU and U.S. Action and Women's Leadership, Legislative Leadership and VoteVets.org and everybody who's here. We really need to take back our country. And I am standing here today saying that the first step to do that is to end this bloody, terrible, atrocious war in Iraq. We've got to do that. And I mean it so much that I am playing hooky from the State Senate in Olympia, Washington right now. We are in session and we are set to adjourn on Sunday. And I did not know if I would be able to make it, so I had my legislative assistant, Ken Camp, over here. Ken, raise your hand. To come out here just in case I could not come. And I decided yesterday that I had to come, and I got that okay with my legislative leadership. And as I was driving back to Seattle from Olympia last night and to go to the airport, I got a call from a reporter from the Daily Olympian in our state capital, and he'd heard a rumor that I was doing this and couldn't believe that I would leave Olympia during the session. So I don't know what I'm going to go back to, but I'll tell you, it was worth it to come here. This is critically important, and I am so glad for all of these wonderful organizations, the wonderful people, and all of you who are working so hard. Being here tonight really gives testimony to that. Just a couple of things that I think are very important to note, though. I introduced Senate Joint Memorial 8003, and a freshman colleague of mine from the suburbs outside of Seattle, I represent a district in Seattle, which is one of the most liberal, progressive cities in the country, so it's easy for me, but not so easy for him. He introduced a Senate Joint Memorial to Congress calling on the looking into of impeachment of President Bush. And these, I hope he's watching this, these two joint memorials got put together in the press, in the legislature, and they really became like twin joint memorials. And there was a great deal of pressure on us to withdraw them. To actually withdraw them. Now, this is in a legislature that's solidly Democratic. I have never been in such a strong majority. We have 32 Democrats and 17 Republicans in the Senate. We have 63 Democrats and 35 Republicans in the House. And our governor is a Democrat. In fact, we're the first state in the history of the country where we have a woman governor and two of women as our United States senators. So we are really doing well. And up till 3 years ago, Washington State had the highest number of women legislators of any state in the country. And in the history of the country, no state has ever gone that far. But even with all of that, there is so much angst about this war among legislators, even though the polling in our state overwhelmingly has shown that our public does not support this war, and it cuts across all demographics. We had a hearing on our joint memorials, the impeachment one and the Iraq War one, the day after the cutoff to get Senate bills and memorials out of committee. So these were not going to go anywhere. But we had over 300 people coming out to testify. We had to open up other hearing rooms and have people watch on television because they couldn't all fit in the hearing room. We had Rocky Anderson, mayor of Salt Lake City, come all the way to Olympia to testify. We had war veterans come out to testify. And I'd like to read, if you don't mind, just one quote that was in the Seattle Times of a very moving testimony of a man whose son was killed in Iraq in 2003. And he testified for my resolution opposing any troop increase. And he said, quote, "I've come to the conclusion that our troops were abused and have been abused and are being abused. It was hard to come to this conclusion because then you have to ask yourself, when you lose a son, what did he die for? I really believe my son died as a hero, but as far as protecting our country or our freedom, not at all." That was very, very compelling. Now, we have found out through iCasualties.org that in our state of Washington, we've now lost 67 women and men, soldiers, who have died in Iraq. And we have spent over $8.6 billion in the last 4 years from our state taxpayers. And I think about what money that really represents in terms of what it could pay for children's health care and for our schools and our colleges and our transportation and all the worthy projects that we have. And we need to really address this. So what is going on in Washington State? When I was there yesterday, many of us tried to get a resolution to the Senate floor. Just a Senate floor resolution. We had a 2-hour caucus, and this is in the last 4 days of the legislative session, and I'm sure you legislators know how difficult that would be. We had tears, we had angst, because people wanted to do something, but they feel at risk about this. So today they decided that they would raise a point of personal privilege on the Senate floor, and we would talk individually. It is really, really tough in a very democratic state like Washington, in a very, very democratic legislature. This war is tearing our country apart. It's tearing legislatures apart. It's tearing the public apart. And we've got to find a way to bring an end to this war and bring our people back. And one last thing. Our Senate caucus leader spoke eloquently in our caucus yesterday, and she spoke about the horrible tragedy at Virginia Tech on Monday, where 32 innocent people were slaughtered, and how we're feeling that and grieving that all over our country. And it's like everything came to a stop all over this country. Yet yesterday, 167 people were killed in Iraq. And we have over 3,300 people of our soldiers who have died in Iraq. And think of the hundreds of thousands of civilians who've died in Iraq. And we don't do anything really about it. It's just ghastly. So I ask everybody here and everybody listening in this country to demand that we get our priorities straight. And we think what we are as a country, and we think of our children and our old people, our families, and what we need to do as a country to get back in touch with our priorities as a people and as a society. And I think that means stopping this terrible war now.